Tonight, Washington is on fire, and the tremors are being felt far beyond Capitol Hill. Representative Ilhan Omar, one of the most polarizing figures in Congress, has just ignited yet another political earthquake, and this time it may finally cost her everything. In a jaw-dropping exchange that left even her own colleagues stunned, Omar questioned whether members of Congress should be prohibited from legislating according to their faith, a statement that instantly triggered outrage across the political spectrum. Within hours, clips of her remarks were spreading like wildfire across social media, with conservatives accusing her of nothing less than trying to ban Christianity from public life. But the explosion didn't end there. House firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene and Texas conservative Chip Roy wasted no time taking the floor, delivering some of the most blistering takedowns seen in Congress this year. Their message was simple: enough is enough. Greene thundered that Omar's words were a direct assault on America's founding principles. Roy called it an attack on the very Constitution she swore to uphold. For millions of Americans who believe faith and freedom are inseparable, Omar's comments were more than offensive. They were a declaration of war on the nation's moral core. To them, it was confirmation of what they've suspected all along, that the new radical left doesn't just want a secular government, they want a godless one. And just when it seemed she might back down, Omar doubled down, turning the conversation toward campus protests and claiming that Muslim and Arab students are the real victims, while downplaying anti-Semitism on U.S. campuses. The backlash was immediate. Even moderates began asking whether Omar had crossed a line too far this time. Behind closed doors, Republican strategists are already whispering about renewed efforts to remove her from key committees, and possibly even a formal censure vote. "This isn't about politics anymore," one insider said. "This is about the soul of Congress." As the headlines blaze with words like removed, exposed, and unfit, one question is echoing through every corridor of power. Has Ilhan Omar finally gone too far? And will this be the moment that ends her congressional career once and for all? Stay tuned, because what happens next could redefine the limits of free speech, faith, and power in American politics forever, for years. Ilhan Omar has been one of the most controversial figures in modern American politics, a lightning rod for outrage, admiration, and division. Born in Somalia, raised in a Kenyan refugee camp, and later sworn into Congress as one of the first Muslim women ever elected, Omar's rise was nothing short of historic. But her time in Washington has been defined by controversy after controversy, from remarks about Israel that sparked accusations of anti-Semitism, to fiery clashes with colleagues over issues of race, religion, and national identity. This latest firestorm, however, feels different. It's not just another partisan fight. It's a moment that strikes directly at the heart of what America stands for: freedom of religion, and the delicate balance between faith and governance. It all began during a congressional hearing on religious freedom, a topic that, on paper, should have united lawmakers in defense of one of America's founding principles. But instead of celebrating that shared value, Omar seemed to challenge its very foundation. With cameras rolling, she asked a question that sent shockwaves through the room. If members of Congress are legislating laws in accordance with their faith, on abortion, LGBTQ issues, or women's rights, shouldn't that be prohibited under our Constitution? To the casual listener, it might have sounded like a question about separation of church and state. But to conservatives, and many moderates, it came across as something much darker, a declaration that people of faith, particularly Christians, should be disqualified from shaping laws guided by their beliefs. Representative Chip Roy, a constitutional conservative from Texas, was reportedly stunned. As a man who has repeatedly invoked his faith as a moral compass in policymaking, Roy viewed Omar's statement as not just an attack on him personally, but on millions of Americans who live by Judeo-Christian values. "We don't impose religion through government," Roy later said, "but we also don't erase it from our conscience. The founders didn't build this country on silence. They built it on conviction." The moment was immediately seized upon by Marjorie Taylor Greene, whose reputation as a fearless firebrand in Congress is as polarizing as Omar's. Within hours, Greene posted the clip to her X, formerly Twitter account, captioning it, "Ilhan Omar wants to ban Christians from government. This is the real war on faith." The post exploded, racking up millions of views overnight. But this wasn't just about one viral soundbite. It was a collision between two deeply different visions of America. On one side, Omar and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, a group that views secularism as essential to equality, where religion should remain strictly personal and private. On the other, conservatives like Green, Roy, and even Speaker Mike Johnson, who see faith as the moral compass of the republic, inseparable from justice, freedom, and the Constitution itself. This ideological clash has been building for years. Omar's critics often point to her past remarks, including her 2019 comment suggesting that U.S. support for Israel was all about the Benjamins, a phrase that drew bipartisan condemnation and accusations of anti-Semitic tropes. Though she later apologized, the damage lingered. Every new controversy since has only deepened the mistrust. So when she made this latest statement, implying that lawmakers who vote based on their faith might be violating the Constitution, many conservatives saw it not as a slip, but as a confession of belief. She said the quiet part out loud, one political analyst noted. To Omar, America's problem isn't corruption or extremism, it's Christianity itself. In the hearing, Omar tried to clarify her intent. She spoke about the importance of a secular government and reminded the committee that religious freedom was life and death for many who fled oppression abroad. But for critics, her words rang hollow. They pointed to what they saw as hypocrisy, using America's religious freedom to undermine the very foundation of that freedom. Outside the chamber, conservative media erupted. Commentators called it a spiritual crisis on Capitol Hill. Online forums lit up with demands for her removal from committees, or even from Congress altogether. One clip, shared by a conservative YouTube channel, featured the headline, "Ilhan Omar just declared war on Christianity. Here's what that means for you." Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't stop at social media posts. Sources inside her office say she began circulating a proposal to formally censure Omar for anti-religious bigotry and dereliction of constitutional duty. It was a bold move, one that would reignite the kind of floor fights last seen when Omar was stripped of her Foreign Affairs Committee seat in 2023. Meanwhile, Chip Roy took a different approach, known for his measured tone and legalistic precision. Roy framed Omar's remarks as part of a larger erosion of constitutional literacy. "This is what happens," he said in an interview, "when ideology replaces understanding. The First Amendment doesn't protect us from religion. It protects our right to it." Behind the scenes, party strategists recognized what was happening. This was more than a policy debate. It was a cultural moment, one that could mobilize faith-based voters in an election year. Conservative pundits began drawing parallels between Omar's rhetoric and what they described as the broader, woke secular takeover of American institutions, from universities to media to government itself. And speaking of universities, Omar's subsequent questioning of Columbia University's president only fueled the flames. She appeared to downplay the rise of anti-Semitism on campuses, instead focusing on alleged discrimination against Muslim and Arab students. To her critics, this was proof of bias, an unwillingness to confront hate unless it fit her political narrative. By the end of that week, the narrative was set. Cable news panels were calling it Omar's faith fiasco. Republican leaders were privately discussing procedural paths for a new censure vote. Meanwhile, Democrats were torn, some defending Omar's right to question the role of religion in governance, others cringing at yet another controversy just months before a major election cycle. But what no one could deny was this: Omar had once again become the center of America's cultural storm, and as her opponents sharpened their rhetoric, invoking God, country, and Constitution, a familiar sense of tension began to grip Capitol Hill. It was the feeling that something bigger was coming. Because when faith, politics, and identity collide in America, there's no such thing as a small fight. And this was only the beginning. When the clip of Ilhan Omar's remarks hit social media, it detonated like a political grenade. Within hours, the halls of Congress buzzed with disbelief, fury, and outrage. What had begun as a dry constitutional discussion about religious freedom had now become a full-blown ideological war. Faith versus secularism, tradition versus progressivism, and patriotism versus what many conservatives called cultural decay. Marjorie Taylor Greene was the first to go on the offensive. Never one to back down from controversy, she took to the House floor the very next morning, her voice sharp, her tone defiant. "This body," she thundered, "was built by men and women guided by faith, faith that shaped our laws, our morals, and our Constitution. And now one of our own colleagues is suggesting that those same values, the ones that built this country, should be prohibited. That is an outrage, and it's an insult to every American who believes in God." The chamber erupted. Some Democrats rolled their eyes, others whispered among themselves. But on the Republican side, the applause was deafening. Greene continued, pacing back and forth like a prosecutor before a jury. If Ilhan Omar had said we should prohibit members from legislating according to Islamic values, she'd call it Islamophobia. But when she says it about Christianity, it's suddenly progressive. No, Madam Speaker, it's hypocrisy, and it's dangerous. That line, "It's hypocrisy and it's dangerous," became the soundbite of the day. It was replayed across conservative media outlets, from Fox News to Newsmax to countless YouTube commentary channels. On social media, the hashtag #RemoveOmarNow began trending nationwide. Meanwhile, Chip Roy took a different but equally explosive approach. Known for his courtroom-like precision, Roy walked to the microphone later that afternoon and delivered a scathing 5-minute rebuke that would go viral overnight. Congresswoman Omar's words cut to the bone of the First Amendment. He began, "The Constitution does not forbid faith, it protects it. When she says legislators should be prohibited from voting according to their beliefs, she's not defending the Constitution. She's rewriting it." He paused for effect, scanning the chamber before landing the blow. "If we start prohibiting people from legislating according to their conscience, then we no longer have a republic. We have tyranny disguised as tolerance." The room fell silent. Even some Democrats shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then came the knockout moment, a phrase that would dominate headlines for the next 48 hours. "The founders didn't fight a revolution to silence their faith," Roy said. "They fought it to live it, freely, openly, and without fear of persecution. And if Congresswoman Omar doesn't understand that, maybe she should revisit the oath she took to defend this Constitution." That clip went everywhere: TikTok, Instagram, even mainstream evening news. Millions watched as Roy's words echoed through the House chamber, capturing what many on the right felt was the heart of the issue. Omar wasn't just making a bad argument. She was attacking the moral DNA of America. But Omar, as always, refused to back down. Hours later, she fired back in a fiery post of her own, accusing Greene and Roy of weaponizing faith to divide Americans. Her post read, "I will never apologize for defending a secular government that protects all religions, not just one. Freedom of religion means freedom from domination." That statement reignited the flames. Greene responded almost immediately, calling Omar's comment the most un-American thing ever said by a sitting member of Congress. She went on a media blitz, appearing on Steve Bannon's War Room, where she declared, "Ilhan Omar has finally shown us what the radical left really wants: a government with no God, no morals, and no accountability. This isn't about freedom of religion. This is about erasing religion entirely." Across cable networks, pundits and anchors dissected the feud from every angle. CNN described it as a debate over constitutional interpretation. Fox News called it a battle for America's soul. On Twitter, it was pure chaos. Supporters of Omar praised her as brave for defending separation of church and state. Critics accused her of trying to criminalize Christianity. Then came the viral montage. Conservative channels began stitching together Omar's previous controversial comments, her 2019 Benjamin's remark, her criticisms of U.S. foreign policy, her defenses of anti-Israel student protests, and overlaying them with her new statements about religion. The message was clear. This wasn't a one-time gaffe. This was a pattern. One viral video, viewed over 6 million times in a single day, opened with the text, "First, she mocked our faith. Then, she defended anti-American protests. Now, she wants to ban Christian lawmakers. How much longer will Congress stay silent?" The title of that clip said it all. Finally, Omar removed. Green and Roy draw the line. Behind the scenes, GOP leadership was reportedly divided. Some wanted to push for an immediate censure vote. Others warned that doing so might make Omar a martyr among progressives. Still, the pressure was building. Constituents flooded congressional offices with calls demanding accountability. Faith leaders released open letters condemning her statements. Even a few centrist Democrats expressed concern over the tone of her remarks. Late that evening, as the debate consumed every political talk show in America, Green delivered one more dramatic statement to reporters outside the Capitol steps. The sky was dark, cameras flashing, rain beginning to fall, but Green's voice cut through the noise like thunder. "When you disrespect faith, you disrespect the very foundation of America," she said. Ilhan Omar's words aren't just offensive, they're unconstitutional. And if leadership won't act, the people will. That clip aired on primetime news across the country, sealing the narrative. To her supporters, Green was standing up for God and country. To her critics, she was exploiting outrage for political theater. But one thing was certain: the moment had captured America's attention. In one hearing, one sentence, Ilhan Omar had reignited the oldest fight in American history: faith versus freedom, God versus government, principle versus politics. And now, the fallout was just beginning. The next morning, Capitol Hill felt like it was vibrating. Every major network was leading with the same headline: Ilhan Omar under fire for faith comments, calls grow for removal. Overnight, the debate had exploded from political circles into the national bloodstream. Talk radio, podcasts, Sunday panels, everyone had an opinion. Fox News anchors framed the moment as a constitutional reckoning. Conservative commentator Ben Ferguson declared, "Omar isn't just attacking Christianity, she's attacking the moral roots of America itself." Meanwhile, progressive voices on MSNBC tried to flip the script. Joy Reid argued that Omar was simply calling for the separation of church and state, something the founders themselves envisioned. But even she admitted her tone didn't help. Social media was a battlefield. The hashtag #JohnRemoveOmarNow topped X within hours, amassing over 600,000 posts. Influencers and political pages flooded timelines with Omar's clip juxtaposed against Bible verses, American flags, and fiery quotes from the Founding Fathers. Memes of Green and Roy standing side by side captioned "Defenders of Faith" flooded conservative feeds. On the other side, Omar's supporters rallied under Troyer's stand with Ilhan, accusing her critics of Islamophobia and political persecution. Then came the petition, launched by a grassroots conservative group, demanding Omar's removal from the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. Within 24 hours, it had over 300,000 signatures. Republican leaders began to feel the heat. According to sources inside the GOP caucus, Speaker Mike Johnson was considering disciplinary options, including a formal censure vote. Meanwhile, the fallout reached Omar's own district in Minnesota. Local news stations interviewed Somali American voters, many of whom still supported her but expressed frustration at what they called constant controversy. One community leader sighed, "We voted for her to represent us, not to fight endless battles." Behind closed doors, some Democrats were privately groaning. Party strategists feared the moment could hurt the progressive brand heading into the next election cycle. One senior aide reportedly told Politico, "Every time Omar trends, we lose independent voters." Even prominent liberals like Senator John Fetterman refused to defend her outright, instead saying, "I don't agree with her comments, but I'll defend her right to say them." The White House tried to stay out of the fray. When asked for comment, the press secretary dodged, "The president believes in freedom of religion, for all faiths." But inside Washington, the message was clear. Omar was on her own this time. By week's end, a new resolution had quietly begun circulating on the House floor. Drafted by Green and co-sponsored by Chip Roy, it called for Omar's immediate censure and removal from all committee assignments. The document's title, "Defending Faith in America," and as reporters swarmed the Capitol asking if she feared expulsion, Ilhan Omar stood firm, her voice steady but defiant. "I will not be silenced for defending secular government. They can try to remove me, but they cannot remove the truth. The storm was far from over. As the dust settled, America found itself staring into a mirror, one reflecting its deepest divides. What began as a question about religion and government had become a referendum on the nation's soul. Was America still a land built on faith and moral conviction, or had it drifted toward something colder, a system where belief itself was treated as a threat? Ilhan Omar's comments exposed more than political fault lines. They unearthed the emotional fracture between two Americas. One side sees faith as the cornerstone of freedom. The other sees it as something that must be restrained to preserve equality. And caught between them is a generation wondering what freedom really means anymore. In small towns across the country, pastors spoke about the controversy from their pulpits. Veterans' halls buzzed with debate. Even college campuses, once detached from congressional squabbles, were now consumed by the same question. Can a nation survive if its moral compass is up for negotiation? For Marjorie Taylor Greene and Chip Roy, this wasn't just another political battle. It was a crusade to protect what they call the last sacred pillar of the Republic. And for Ilhan Omar, it was another moment where her convictions clashed head-on with America's outrage machine. But beyond the noise, one truth remained. This fight wasn't just about Ilhan Omar. It was about who gets to define America. Those who believe in preserving its faith, or those who want to rewrite it entirely. History will decide which vision wins. But tonight, America is watching. CTA, outro, approx. 300 words. If you believe faith still matters, if you believe that the Constitution was written not to silence belief but to protect it, then this moment is your wake-up call. Because what we just witnessed isn't an isolated argument, it's a warning. Every time someone says faith should be prohibited from public life, what they're really saying is that your voice, your conscience, your convictions have no place in this country. And if we stay silent now, that silence will become the new standard. This story isn't just about Ilhan Omar, it's about every American who still believes that freedom of religion is not a flaw. It's the foundation. Whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or of no faith at all, the right to believe, or not believe, is what makes this country different from every other nation on earth. So, as this debate rages on, ask yourself, are we still the America where people can speak freely about God and government? Or have we allowed ideology to become the new religion? If you care about protecting faith, freedom, and truth, don't just scroll past this moment. Share this video, subscribe. Drop a comment below with the words, "Stand for Faith." Because history isn't written by the loudest voices. It's written by those who refuse to be silenced. And tonight, as the storm swirls around Congress, one thing is clear: this battle is far from over. The question now is, which side will you stand on?